I'm ahead of the game.
Remember who am I? I'm a boss and I'm honestly off my rocker, but follow me, I'm ahead of the game. I'm ahead of the game.
The inspiration for this panel was you think it's really, really hard becoming a manager until you become a manager of managers. And you don't realize it's just like another rung on the ladder. It's like a whole different skill set and you're lost. And it's super hard. And so because we have such an amazing senior audience tuned in today, I thought this would be a perfect topic. And then thanks to these wonderful ladies, we were able to put together the perfect panel also. So we have Ines Thornburg, who's the Area Vice President of Splunk, works in their customer success arm. Arke Harris is the Senior Director of Engineering at Slack. She actually got her intro at Slack through a Girl Geek dinner, so you should be coming to those dinners, because if you want to be Arkway, and don't we all, you should do that. And then Bora Chung, who's the Senior Vice President of Product Management at Bill.com. So they've all worked at different size companies. They're at different size companies now, so they have all of this amazing perspective. Bora's going to come from product, and Arkway's going to come from engineering, and Ines is going to come from customer success, and it's going to be amazing. And all I have to do is basically sit back and let these women talk. So if we want to do a quick kind of round of intros, and why don't you start, Arkway, and let us know kind of how many people that you're managing now and a little bit about how you got where you are.
Sure. Hi, I'm Arkway, Senior Director of Engineering of essentially the growth team here at Slack. My org is about 70 or so people. I manage two teams. One is called customer acquisition and one is called expansion. And essentially they make up the product purchase funnel. And how I got to Slack, as mentioned, I went to a Girl Geek dinner. I highly recommend that you go. It's very rewarding. And I've been here for about 4 years. I've watched the company grow from a company that was about 500, where engineering was roughly 100 or so, to now engineering is well over 700. And at our largest, we were 2,500 people. So,
Bora?
Hi, everyone. I'm Bora Chung. I am SVP of Bill.com, and I lead an organization of about 40 product managers and product designers. Just to give you context of the size of the company, so we are about 13-year-old company that do workflow automation for SMBs. And our revenue is about, I think last fiscal year was about 110 million. The entire company size is about 550. So product managers and product designers account for about 40 of them. And we just went public December last year. So we're going through a transition of being a private company to public company. How I got here, even though I manage both designers and product managers, my own professional heritage is more on the product management side. So I spent 9 years out of business school at PayPal, 4 years at Apple, and then 4 years at eBay.
The quick unmute is not working. Ines, can you go?
Absolutely. Thank you, Gretchen. So Ines Thornburg, I am responsible for the Americas portfolio and customers for customer success at Splunk. My team is about 100 people, comprising of customer success managers as well as the renewal function and the renewal team that supports Americas customers. And been here about 2 years now, and my career spans back to a series of different software companies where I started off as a consultant doing implementations, moved into pre-sales, joined Oracle through the acquisition of Hyperion. So I went from a small growing company to a mid-sized company to a mega company, was there for a while, learned a lot, and then decided to try a venture startup. So why I'm at Splunk, the technology is very relevant in today's data explosion, as well as where we are in our journey in terms of maturity. And so Splunk is going through a pretty massive business transformation, shifting to a SaaS and subscription model. So that's what really excited me. We're still what I would consider a medium-sized company and really on a trajectory of growth. And that's what I feel like I can make an impact on for our customers.
All right. So you guys can see why, y'all, I'm trying not to say you guys, y'all can see why I'm so excited about this panel. They have just an amazing set of backgrounds. So I think it's a completely different skill set, right? Inez, what do you feel like you kind of had to relearn in that very first time that you went from being a manager to managing managers?
Gretchen, for me, it was all about how I spent my time, really. And so going from being, as I mentioned, starting off as an individual contributor, doing the work myself, then being able to manage people doing work, then to manage multiple work streams and priorities, and making sure that those managers responsible for different work streams not only were competent and experts in their field, but then me balancing my time across the different responsibilities in a way that, frankly, I wasn't getting too involved. I learned to trust the expertise on my team and learn what was good enough. And frankly, perfection is not always the end goal. We have to continue to progress multiple work streams at one time and initiatives, and really making sure that no one gets left behind. And so me figuring out that right balance between rolling up my sleeves and doing versus allowing people to do and coaching along the way was really that art that, we continue to perfect over time.
So Bora, you were like within the first 100 employees at PayPal, right?
That's right. When I first started, I started out as an MBA summer intern, and the company was about 100 people.
So what was that journey kind of along the same vein, but I'm assuming it sort of started there where you were kind of drinking from the fire hose?
Sure. I think the soft skill that I learned during that period was just mental agility. So there were a lot of ambiguous situations when you're a fast-paced startup with just very few resources. You don't really have a very well-defined job description. So there were lots of ambiguous situations that hit you every day. But just figuring out, how to be a go-getter and get out of that ambiguity using mental agility was a skill set that I picked up in the early days of my career. And then when, if I could just connect that with the manager's manager transition, when I get to a manager and then a manager's manager, what I had to unlearn a little bit was when do I helicopter out and versus when do I helicopter in. There's absolutely no management course or management book written about how to do it, when to feel it out. So I think that's a basic soft skill that you have to pick up very quickly. And I struggled through that a little bit. I'm still learning it. But to me, the biggest difference between a junior employee in a very small startup versus a manager's manager is learning how to do helicoptering in and helicoptering out at the right moments.
Right. Yeah, I like that analogy. Arkwe, what's a skill you had that served you really well as a manager and then you kind of had to unlearn?
Oh, that I had to unlearn. As an engineer, I got into engineering leadership in the way that most engineering managers get into engineering management, which is you're the most technically proficient person on the team. And so your manager says to you, have you ever thought about management? And you're like, no, but I'll try it, right? And so it's a really hard transition because you know that you're technically most proficient. And so you just want to jump in there and do PR reviews and all of the stuff. And so you have to really make this transition from being able to be the person who is the peer on the team to the person who is the leader on the team. And then when you make the transition from managing individual contributors, for people playing bingo, to manager, what happens there is you go from this very directive, sort of supporting, coaching state of mind to managing to outcomes. Right. So when you have a person who is also responsible for managing other people on the team, you don't want a person who is managing or doing things in the way that you would do them. Right. You want them to manage in the way that they do them, in the way that feels comfortable for them. And so I would never say to my manager, hey, I want you to do this. And this is step 1, 2, 3. It's this is the outcome. How can I support you to get there? You have to really trust them to be able to do it. And so the unlearning comes from this thing of wanting to be the person who is the hero, jumps in, saves the day, maybe writes the code, to really growing and empowering that next generation or that next level of leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. So Maybe let's go with Bora. What skills have you gained along the way that you feel like, oh, if I just learned that earlier, it would have been so much less painful?
Right. I think it's 101s, doing skip level 101s and getting the right communication done in those sessions. So one mistake I made when I became a manager's manager was I was just having 101s with my immediate direct reports, but then they also have a set of teams, and maybe not as frequent, but making sure that I check in with the team members. And the delightful moments are when I hear some of the key themes and strategies being played back. I think that's when things are going well. And when you completely hear Game of Telephone being played and have a disconnected kind of direction and alignment, that's when you know that things are not going well. So I think one thing that I recommend, and it's a pretty tactical thing that you could easily do, is maybe a little bit less frequent, but do a skip level 101 check-in. And I think that I didn't realize early enough, but I picked it up, and that has been serving me greatly.
Yeah, that I'm taking that one back with me for sure. How about you, Ines?
I think the one thing as you grow in your career and you become more visible, have more responsibilities, the one thing that I've learned is that when you speak or when you say something, the impact of what you're saying really is that much stronger, that much more gospel, so to speak. And, when you're facilitating a meeting or when you're communicating, you have to realize that as your responsibility grows, is that people really listen. And so you have to be careful. So if you're trying to facilitate a brainstorming, for example, what I've learned is facilitate the dialogue, get the conversation going, but I reserve what my opinion is until the end, because I don't want everybody to just think that my opinion is the right one, because it's certainly not. That's why I bring together, and when I'm doing hiring, I always try to look for complementary skills. But so I've learned to really be cautious about what I say and when I say it and to whom I say it, because I realize that, frankly, what I'm saying does affect and impact a lot of the folks on the team.
How about you, Arkway?
Things I wish I could have learned earlier. This is a thing that I say all the time, which is I say be friendly, not friends. And if my team's watching, they're probably laughing about this, because I say this a lot, and it's basically like very early on in my career when I made that transition to manager. These people are your best friends. You hang out with them every night, and when you are friends with the people who report to you, you cannot be impartial, right? Like, you can't say to your best friend, you really screwed up on that thing, I need you to work harder in this area. It can be really awkward. And so what I really learned later in my career was how to set boundaries, because I do you a disservice if I'm not able to give you that really constructive and helpful feedback and make you and help you grow. And that doesn't mean that you have to be this monster who's just a robot, but boundaries are really, really important. And I just wish I'd learned that earlier.
Yeah, definitely. So you kind of talked a little bit when we were before, about another skill about learning to delegate, and you had this example of like quadrants.
Oh, yeah. I kind of dug into that a little bit earlier. It's not. I wish I could claim credit, but it's essentially just about situational leadership. You can Google it. There's lots of videos on YouTube about it, but it's basically about how when you are leading a large organization or any organization, what a lot of managers will do is they will try to bend the team to the way that they lead. Right? Like, I'm really introverted, or I'm super extroverted, or whatever it is that the people need to fit into what I expect of them. But really what a really good leader should do is you should make your management style situational to the person and to the stage that they are in their career. And so it really just goes into this first quadrant, which is directive, which you might do to a more junior person. Like, you might say, Bora, I need you to log into this machine, do this work, right? And then you move up into coaching, which is you have a little bit more skill, and it's like, all right, like, you kind of know what you're doing. How can I coach you through it? On to supporting, which is, you know what you're doing. How can I support you? How can I help you get to that next level? And the final magic kind of golden quadrant is delegation. And that's just like, I don't even really need to tell you what to do. You probably are bringing me the problem, telling me what it is that needs to be solved. And I think like the thing that's really interesting is it's not really a straight line. Like you might kind of hover depending upon your skill set. Maybe in communication, you're in full on delegation mode, but technical proficiency, maybe you need a little bit more support. And so I think that when I'm managing managers, I really try to think about it in that way, about like, what are the strengths and how do I help really uplift a person's strengths? And how do I help them really either correct for or counterbalance any weaknesses that they may have?
That is a good segue. So hiring is so different, right? Like all the skills that you learn to like vet people when you were a manager and you were just vetting them for, do they have the skill set to do this role? And do I think they'll be the right fit with this team, right? But when you start hiring managers, like what's your suggestion there? Where do we start, Inez?
So one of the best practices that we have, and we really are very, very firm about it at Splunk, is we at any role at this point, we have a panel. We have a select group of people that bring different questions to the table to assess skill. So for example, we may have someone assessing the technical skill. We may have someone assessing behavioral type skills, situational skills, collaboration skills, etc. I always like to make sure I speak to the finalists. I like to know every single person on my team, a little bit about them. And really, I have two primary questions that I've always asked as a leader during hiring through every company I've been at, which are, number one, why am I talking to you today about this role, whatever the role is? Because what I'm looking for in that question is really, what is their career journey? Why does this particular role fit into their long-term career journey? I'm not looking for someone that's just applying for a job because they may have seen something. I want somebody who's put thought into how this role is going to help them along their long-term career journey. Second, why Splunk or why whatever company? And to me, that shows me they've done their homework. They have a passion about, what the company is we're trying to achieve, and we can have a dialogue. And from there, those two questions really helped me take it on to the next level of conversation, which is something that, frankly, how I always start those. And I'm not looking for skill. I'm not looking for technical proficiency. I'm looking for the long-term drivers that really want that person to be on my team.
So Bora, you're at a company that's like 1/6 the size of Splunk. So you might not quite have all the bells and whistles that Inez has at her disposal, right? So what is your process and how is it different?
Yeah, so we start with the fact that interview is definitely a two-way street. So we want to make sure that we evaluate the candidates, but candidates are evaluating us. So we try to actually put an interview panel together that represents cross-functional relationships, because teamwork, team play is an important element of culture at Bill.com. So we make sure that the candidate experiences the characters and the types of people that he or she will be working with. So I think that's one. The other piece is I think we have different seniority levels represented in the interview panel as well, so that I think some of the maybe early career folks could really test out the technical chops. Is this person a great designer? Is this person a great engineer? And then maybe someone like me could maybe test a little bit more about their soft skills, right? Can you actually influence the cross-functional teams? Are you going to think more for the company versus your own output versus your own team's output? So I think we have a good balance of technical assessments and culture fit and teamwork elements going on. So I think, we could definitely do more in terms of strengthening the recruiting process, but we've been hiring a lot of good talents through this.
So Arkoy, you're kind of at the mid-size between the two, but also like, what did you have to change about how you interviewed? In like, what skills did you need? What muscle did you need to build to be able to vet people as to be managers as well as you did for ICs?
Yeah, having worked at like very, very large companies where you have an interview process that is pretty set in stone and pretty precise, the cool thing about working at a hyper-growth company like Slack is that I had the opportunity to really be involved in crafting that interview process and seeing it evolve over time. And we right now have a pretty defined rubric where we have pretty set slots where you're judging people on things like teamwork and collaboration, their ability to execute, strategy, and then we try to make it so that we have really diverse panels that are representative of gender, and race, and tenure, and that type of thing. But I think that the difference between sort of evaluating an IC versus a manager is that to a certain extent, when you're judging an IC, there is the work product that can be a really good weeding out factor. Because like if you do a coding exercise or you do, even when you come in and you're doing whiteboarding exercise, it's not necessarily algorithms, but something that shows technical proficiency. It's a little bit easier to see whether or not a person can thrive or not thrive. It's not perfect, but you have more signal, right? When you're evaluating a manager, it is, as was mentioned, a lot more about the soft skills. And so you're really trying to see if given certain scenarios, how they can fit. And I think that it really does depend on your particular company and size and what you're looking for. And so, for example, in those early days of Slack, one of the things that was really important was hiring managers who had experience or aptitude for scaling teams. Right? If you, because recruiting, if your engineering org is like 50 people or 100 people, and we're trying to grow to 700, 800 within a couple of years, like recruiting is going to be a very big part of it. And do you understand how to build strong relationships with recruiting? Do you understand how to really evaluate your pipeline, fill gaps on your team? And so it's these types of questions that we're really looking for. In terms of making it so that it's a really fair and consistent process, we really make sure that we try to have our interviewers stick to the rubric, look to the way that people are answering the questions, and that it's not just subjective, like, oh, they'd be cool to hang up with kind of thing. We like to make it so that there is just some fairness and consistency built into the process.
Yeah, absolutely. You got me thinking also, I think some folks really hesitate to hire that person with way more experience, right? Especially if you're at the hypergrowth company, because if you're in a senior role at the hypergrowth company, you're gaining the skills for like at a rate that does not keep up, right? Like you might have like perfected your job yesterday and you might be like finally good at it, but the next day it's a different job and you're not good anymore, right? And you're constantly going. So how do you sort of fight that, that I think some people get really nervous about? I need to hire someone who knows what it looks like when we get there, right? But that's also a person that may know a lot more than you do. And I think people hesitate with that. How do you advise people to work with that?
Yeah. When I started at the company, my team was 2 people, like literally 2 people. And that was fine. I was like, all right, let's roll up sleeves, let's get it done. I was really excited about working for this particular company at that time. And I think that you can suss a little bit of that out in the interview, right? Like even if you're interviewing someone and they haven't done that exact thing and they can really describe to you their approach or their philosophy, what I really look for is this person a structured thinker? Do they have like best practices or some kind of toolkit or some sort of methodology in the way that they approach leadership? Because part of it is what you just said. It's all intangible, right? Like the ambiguity is so high at a company like this that understanding what type of leader you are and what you can contribute, that's way more important than a very specific checklist of skills. Because like you said, tomorrow it's going to be different anyway.
Bora, you were nodding your head on that.
Yeah, I was thinking about the early part of my career when you asked that question. So I think when I was more junior and early part of my career, I was thinking that I should be the smartest person if I'm the manager. And I was somewhat reluctant and afraid of hiring people smarter than smarter than myself rather. But what I am realizing is that it's absolutely cool to hire people smarter than me. It actually elevates the team. It improves the quality of the thinking, and ultimately what we deliver to our customers is going to be much stronger. So I think I had to shed that a little bit of, I think, early stage career insecurity to really put together a strong team. So I think that was one. And then I think it goes back to one of the comments that Ines made earlier. I don't have to be the perfectionist that knows all the answers. Sometimes a great value as a manager or manager's manager comes from asking the right question, maybe asking the powerful question that nobody else is asking because they're afraid or there's a big elephant in the room. So I think a lot of wisdom I gained over the years is that it's awesome to have team members that are smarter than you. They elevate you and your team. And then two is you don't have to have all the answers. Sometimes asking the powerful question could really be helpful as a manager or manager's manager.
Absolutely. So Ines, you have this huge organization. What do you have to add in? You have like 400 people, right? Or something. It's a crazy number. Yeah.
At Splunk, my team's about 100, but in other jobs and other companies, it's certainly been a lot larger. And that's the thing. It's like, we have, as our responsibility grows, you'll have lots of different experts on your team in different disciplines, different business units, what have you. And it's impossible, just to chime in with Bora and Arkway, you can't be the expert. It's just physically impossible as your organization grows. And so what you do need to do is to be really, really comfortable working with these teams of experts and helping them accomplish their mission. And so as a leader, really my value to my team is making sure that we're working towards the same goals and cascading those company goals down. Everybody understands those goals, that we're progressing on those goals, and frankly, that we're communicating our progress effectively and working together. And so, Splunk's a very technical company like all these others. And am I technical? No, but I have a business degree, and frankly, we're running a business at Splunk. And so my goal is to make sure that from a customer perspective, that those customers are getting value out of our technology so that they renew and we grow as an organization. And so my value to my team is different than the value of them to our company. And that's what we have to make sure that we're always balanced on so that together the team is stronger. So that's the way I think about it.
Okay, so time is going way too fast. We're going to do one more question, and then I see that we have some amazing questions in the Q&A also. So your most cringeworthy and your most exciting moments when you first made this transition, so that everyone can sort of go along with you. I can go first. My most cringeworthy was like what Bora said. I thought I needed to know everything, and I was so embarrassed when I didn't know what was going on. And it took me a while to realize I'm just air traffic controller. And actually the less information I have on a tactical level, the less opportunity I have to screw things up. And I should just let the expert be the expert. And then my most amazing one was when I walked in, I was planning this 10,000 person conference, and there were hundreds of people setting up all of these little tiny details that we'd spent a year making. And I knew the names of 6 people that I could see at any given moment. And I was like, okay, this is working. They have this. They've got it. I don't even need to know what's going on right now. This is amazing. So why don't you kick us off, Arkway?
Cringeworthy is definitely bad hires. Unlike hiring a bad IC hire, the blast radius is just so large when you have a bad management hire, and it can affect the careers for quarters and quarters of the people on the team. Most amazing moment is it's really fulfilling and rewarding to see people grow. To see them go from kind of more junior manager to senior manager to director, to just see them be able to come into their own as a manager, develop their own styles. And that's probably the best thing.
How about you, Ines?
Most cringeworthy is when I feel like I've not done enough preparations and prepared my team. And so specifically, again, we're all in some sort of technical discipline. Learning the technical skills, I think, is one aspect of the job, but let's not forget about the soft skills. And so Arkway mentioned soft skills and looking at those in hiring, but also continuing to help the teams augment them. So that means communication skills, that means collaboration, meeting facilitation. It means executive presence, making sure that when you're representing your company or your team, that you do it in such a way that you're proud of that. So when I know I haven't prepared my team and I see a train wreck about to happen, that's when I'm like, that's the cringeworthy. The most proud, frankly, Splunk just had our sales kickoff, and we've been working really hard as a customer success organization over the past couple years to get to a point where we're really ready to support, almost 20,000 customers globally. And the team recognition and what I saw, what my executives and the company recognized on the customer success team was just extremely rewarding to see the people on my team winning awards, being part of large contributions to customers. And frankly, it just made me, really warm and proud inside.
That's awesome. All right, Bora.
So cringing moments. So when you become a manager, naturally, a lot more escalations hit your desk. And escalations can stem from conflicts between people or conflicts between departments, or sometimes goals are out of line. And just having to resolve conflicts on behalf of the team. Sometimes you're successful, sometimes you are not so successful and disappoint the team. So I think just the escalation handling and conflict resolution, I think I had some rough spots at the beginning of my career. So I think that's the cringe moments. The most proud moments, there are times that when you go on an extended vacation or extended business trip, you come back and your boss is basically telling you that, oh my God, boy, your team was perfect. I didn't even know that you were out of the office. And at the beginning, again, you're like, does that mean that I'm not adding any value? Did you not know that I was out of office? Maybe, sometimes I would wish that like some crisis would happen just so that they know that I was absent. But I think the real truth is that means that you have a fantastic bench and you have a great top talent manager. So my most proud moment is when I'm absent on a sabbatical or vacation, and then the team doesn't even notice that. I think that's the ultimate success of coaching and grooming the right team.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, so we have a ton of questions. So the first one, and we're going in order of their voting. As women of color, have you experienced any difficulty or veiled biases while managing male coworkers? What did you do to handle that situation? So, Arquay Bora. Arquay's like,
Sure, I'll just jump in.
Okay.
I think one of the hardest things about being a woman, especially a woman of color, is just the bigotry of low expectation. And so what happens to me a lot in particular is people think that I'm not technical. Like I've had interns be like, oh, do you code? Like, which is a ridiculous question that you probably never ask a male who's the director of engineering. And so I think, you face that a lot. And it's really unfortunate. On the bright side, I think things are changing, particularly as we get more and more women in leadership positions. I think just having different voices in the room is really contributing to the conversation. So,
for me, the usual stereotype where sometimes the hardship is, especially as an Asian woman, getting stereotyped into a bucket of, oh, you must be quiet, you must be an introvert. So I think this is why I spent extra energy on developing what we usually call the executive presence and executive gravitas, because especially when you become a manager, it's not just your personal brand and personal reputation, it's your team's effectiveness that you have to be responsible for. So I think those have been some tough spots, but I think I try to overcome it by being more vocal and representing the team more actively.
all right.
Gretchen, I think you're muted.
I need to unmute. Okay, so Bora, this one's for you. What are the things that you discussed during your skip level one-on-one? I'm thinking of setting up a skip level one-on-one with my skip level manager, but I don't know what we should discuss during those meetings.
Right. So I think it starts with just a very broad question of how are things going, right? The other kind of check-in is that, is there a certain expectation? So I try to also let the manager in the middle know that we are having the skip level. So I think worst outcome is that if the manager in the middle gets alienated in this conversation. So I don't really have an agenda. I think just like our services are getting more and more personalized, I think the skip level one-on-ones need to get personalized. So with some folks, I talk about just their career aspirations. with some folks, since I'm one level away, they could maybe ask more questions about the big picture strategy and whatnot. So it's a little bit different. But the two things that I just always do is I let the team member drive the agenda. I just start by just checking in on overall things, and I make sure that the manager in the middle is aware of the fact that we're having this conversation. And without breaching confidentiality, if there are some key themes that I think the manager in the middle should know, I also make it pretty obvious and public as well.
Ines, do you do skip level?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I even do double skips. And, like I said, I want to be the finalist on all interviews because I really take pride in knowing people and knowing. And one of the things as a leader of a large organization that I like to understand is career aspirations, as Bora mentioned, because, honestly, this is where we have a much larger purview of opportunity, right? As a leader. And frankly, if, I have a conversation with someone and I understand, really they want to be in another part of the organization at some point in the future. If I see that connection and see that match, I would love to make that match and keep that talent within my company rather than seeing people leave and take all that wonderful knowledge that we have and great talent to another company, frankly. And so I do that a lot. And frankly, when I'm looking, I don't want people leaving my organization necessarily, but at the same time, if we can promote from within and give people more opportunity within our organization, it just makes, frankly, people appreciate that. And, I love a team that culturally has a strong morale and knows that we've got each other's backs.
Right. Well, I think this one's for everyone. So we'll have Arquay kick us off. What are the top traits and qualities you recommend focusing on for someone looking to get into a management role?
Adaptability, for sure. Because the thing about being an IC is that it's a pretty defined trajectory to go from associate to engineer to senior staff, right? Like you might not know exactly what it is, but there's some part of it that's mapped out. It's a little bit more opaque when you're talking about leadership because in any given moment, you could have to deal with people's emotions and you have to coach and you have to support and you have to discipline and you have to it's just all of these things that you have to do. And so you have to take, like we say, growth mindset. You have to be willing to iterate and change. So if you have these kind of qualities, if you're a person who's like really rigid and like things just so, maybe want to not consider something else maybe.
Or find people that are just like you. Yeah.
Or that, yeah.
So, yeah. How about you, Bora?
I would say kind of maybe two shifts in mixes, right? So one is if ICs generally think about execution for the most part, I would say you have to start to blend in execution as well as strategic thinking, right? So I think that's kind of maybe the first shift. The second one is just how you think about time horizon. So let me maybe take product development as an example. So maybe when you're an IC, you're thinking mostly about next release, the release after that. But when you become a manager, you think about maybe an annual roadmap or like a 3-year vision. I think those are maybe the difference in time horizon of your thinking. And there's not a right or wrong. I think there need to be a different parts of thinkers. Like some people need to execute, some people need to think strategy, some people need to think next release, some people need to think about the 3-year vision. But I think those are some of the shifts that you need to have to transition into a managerial role.
Ines?
Yeah, in addition, the adaptability is huge. And Bora's comments, I think, were spot on. I will add on to those, communication. And frankly, as you think about just rallying a team from what they're doing at a macro level down to the micro, everyone needs to have a proper communication cadence and understand where we're all marching towards. So I think a lot about communication and different ways that we communicate. So, whether it's quarterly all hands calls, weekly cadence calls, the one-on-ones, the skip levels, Slack, we have Slack channels, we have, email cards. We communicate in lots of different ways. And we actually have spent the starting part of our year thinking about all the different communication time, the different communication means and important forums that we need to do to make sure, frankly, everyone is marching in line. At these high growth companies, things are moving so fast. And, frankly, as a leader, we have to make sure that everyone is working towards the same goal. So tops down, bottoms up, communication to me is super, super important. And sometimes we just don't think about it enough. So that's one that I'll add on.
Yeah, or the mindset that like meetings are a waste of time. Like meetings are your lifeblood when you get to a certain level. Like if you spent your whole day in meetings, unless they were just, you're not careful with your time. If you spent your whole day in meetings, you were doing your job all day. And I think that's a mindset thing that a lot of people really struggle with changing.
Yep, agreed.
So next question, I think this would be for Arkway. In engineering, what can we do as an organization to encourage more women in managers' positions? Was there anything specific that helped you get to where you are in your career? And that is Katie coming from the Scotland, UK today.
Oh, wow. Hey. Well, thanks for joining. Yeah, I think, so part of it is basically making sure that there's some sort of support system at your company and like paying it forward and being that person who can encourage. So for example, one of the things that I do at my company is every week I have office hours, and I post it in a women's ERG or ERG again, bingo. So I'll post it in certain channels and get people to sign up and try to be a mentor and support system when I can. And then the other thing is, I think really just having, well, when I was coming up, there weren't a lot of people who looked like me who did the job that I do. And so it just wasn't a thing that I could even see myself doing. The idea of a CTO was Andy Grove, right? With a khaki shirt, a blue shirt and khaki pants. And so that's part of it too. Just making yourself aware and available and aware to other people within engineering and letting people know that, hey, you are a source of information. And then sponsorship is a big thing that people are doing lately. If there's someone that you see who you think has potential, maybe encourage them. And if I have people on my team who show interest in management, maybe try giving them some tasks. Like, hey, like maybe try managing this intern for a summer and seeing how it goes. Or maybe you might want to run the sprint meeting, that kind of thing. Really just give them these little nuggets to see if they have the aptitude and really kind of like and understand what management is.
That was amazing. I can't believe we're already at time, but I just want to thank you on behalf of everyone who's tuned in right now, because you guys just gave them the most amazing session. So thank you again to Arkway, Inez, and Bora, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Thank you all.
Bye.
But I gotta switch it up.